والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah, and may peace and blessing be upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam. Today is going to be a start for a new class and a new book. And this book, I would presume, not more than 7 or 8 classes. I would try to do it even less than that. That is a book of Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya, and the Muslims need for these Tasfiya and Tarbiya, for both of these pillars. And this book is a book compiled by, actually is a lecture delivered by the Sheikh of the era, Sheikh Nasir Uddin Albani, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy upon him. And it was printed into a book, which is, that is the thing that is Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya, that he was calling for all his life. And he had managed as well to make lots of scholars to revolve and make the da'wah of theirs on the core of this Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya, because this is what the Muslims are in need of in these days. So the book, just being told, is not available in the bookshop of this masjid, but you may try it as well in another bookshop. But we need to have this book, and I tried to actually get a copy of that in English in the internet. So if you have any person who's got a website that put this on a PDF, or photocopy, there's no problem to have it, because you're not trying to sell it. So for the sake of learning. So if anybody can please, I got it from a different language, in French and other languages, but not in English. I got it in Arabic. I've got it in Arabic in PDF, but not in English. So if you have this is the book of Tasfiya and Tarbiya. This is the booklet, so it's in totality with the indices and so on and so forth, is about less than 70 pages. So that's the book, inshallah. We're going to be explaining for the next 7 classes or less. Before we start any book, like we have got used to it in every class and every session, we do give a shed light on the scholar or the author or the person who delivered the lecture, because it's very important to know the person and why it is important to explain and interpret and make sharh for his interpretation. It was as well the etiquette whenever a student of knowledge or a scholar, that when they explain a hadith or a book for somebody, they will start with giving a brief biography about the person who had delivered that topic or given that lecture or written that book. And alhamdulillah, in the terms of Kitab al-Sunnah, that is for Imam Ahmad, Usul al-Sunnah, that when we applied it, we have given as well some biography about Imam Ahmad. So today the topic is that to give a short biography about the Allama, Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah. Who is that Sheikh? And why is it important as well to know about that Sheikh and read the books that the Sheikh had written, rahimahullah, and how he contributed to the Muslim heritage. And it's so important for a person who's claiming to be upon the Sunnah to know the Sheikh Al-Albani. And Sheikh Al-Albani in this era was equivalent to our shuyukh as great as Sheikh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. If any person would say anything against Sheikh Islam ibn Taymiyyah this time, that means he's been accused in his religion. Same thing here, if anybody says something against Sheikh Al-Albani in terms of his aqidah, not in terms of he makes mistakes or not, in terms of his aqidah, then you have to accuse that person in his religion, there's something wrong with him. Al-Allama, Sheikh Al-Albani, I have gathered some interpretation from different sources. You could find that some of the books have not been interpreted yet, haven't been yet to be written as well. Some of them as well based upon some of the students of knowledge who collected some of the stories here and there. So I've got here about 6 pages of biography of the Sheikh, rahimahullah. I'll start with translating that. Al-Allama, Sheikh Nasir Uddin Albani. He is one of the great scholars of this era, and he is one of the great scholars of the hadith in ilm al-jarh wa ta'deel, in criticizing, that is the narrators and so on and so forth. And he used to be a hujjah, a proof in regarding mustalah al-hadith. That means if he says something that we take his opinion to be a great opinion, and that is why we find most of the scholars who write books in fiqh or any field of Islam, whenever they come to a hadith which is not in the Sahihain, Bukhari and Muslim, if it is narrated outside these two books, they would say this is narrated by Tirmidhi and authenticated by Sheikh Al-Albani. It became, and yeah, alhamdulillah, as a phenomenon, as I said, that we find most of those scholars, they depend upon Sheikh Albani's opinion regarding that hadith, just to show you that he became a hujjah, a proof in mustalah al-hadith. And some of the scholars, which we're going to be narrating some of the words, they said he had revived the era and the ages of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and Ibn Kathir, those people who are great huffaz al-hadith, al-Hafidh ibn Kathir, al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. Ibn Hajar, by the way, is called Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader of the believers. Okay, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and rightly so you could call the Sheikh Amir al-Salafiyin in this era regarding the hadith. As in his where he was born and how he was raised up, Sheikh Al-Albani, Muhammad Nasir Uddin, he is the son of Al-Hajj Nuh Najat Al-Albani, and he was born in the year 1333 after Hijrah, which is, I know that some of you don't know what is that equivalent to, because they are all the time depending upon the Christian date. I'm not talking about in terms of the solar system, I'm talking about timing from the Christian date, and that is 1914. So this is just about a few years before the First World War. And it was in the city of Ashkodra, which is the capital of Albania at that time. And he had a poor family, and that family was known to be a religious family. As was his father, he used to be a sheikh for his locality. He used to teach them, and he used to guide them as well. The sheikh, he had migrated in the company of his father to Damascus. This migration, it was taking place because of a number of issues. Kemal Ataturk at that time was taking leadership in Turkey and as well in the province of Albania and so on and so forth. And that man, that person had imposed upon his people to follow the trend and the fashion of the disbelievers. Like for example the hat, and even he had changed the language, which is the Turkish language, which was based upon Arabic letters, into Latin letters. And he was a drunkard person and a secularist person, and you could say he is a disbeliever. And because of his era, there were lots of pressure and persecution upon those people who are trying to follow the religion. So it was, it was the decision of his father to migrate along with his family and his wife and his children to Damascus, Dimashq, and the first the place he landed in was Lebanon before Damascus, and to reside there for the rest of his life. Of course, Ahmed Zago, he was the king of Albania, and he was the follower of Kemal Ataturk. It's the same thing, Ahmed Zago. The Sheikh Al-Albani, he had finished his preparatory, which is the first stage of his school, in a madrasa called Al-Is'af al-Khayri in Damascus, and he was one of the best. Here, it just reminds me of what the Sheikh Al-Albani had said during the class of Arabic language. Remember, he is Albanian, so even though that he is studying in Arabic there, he came as a young person, but he's labeled to be what? The Albanian, not the Arab, the Albanian. Now, whenever the teacher, which is to do with the Arabic, the grammar, he asks a question, okay? None of the students will be able to answer it, and he's just now sort of belittling them and showing them how the bad in their studies. Okay, Albanian, go and answer the question. How can an Albanian answer a question in Arabic where you, the Arabs, you can't answer it? So you are Arabs, you're not good in your language as this Albanian person. And he remembers as well. He had a mastija, the sheikh, the teacher of the Arabic. He had a very long stick. It would reach even the back of the class. So he wants a person he will like fishing. The sheikh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared him. Because of his father, he saw that there is no benefit whatsoever. Oh, there is, but it's not really the benefit that he is looking after, looking for and searching for in making his son, the Sheikh Al-Albani, to be in those systematic schools. He decided to take him out from those schools. And if that is the case at that time when they used to teach Arabic and a bit of religion, so what about the case when we teach our children here in total disbeliever schools? Okay, so if he himself, the Sheikh's father, what he said, he decided that he should not go ahead. He had his first stages where he could learn Arabic and study the Arabic, and he mastered it as well up to, so you could say about 4 or 5 years. And after that, his father decided to bring him home and start to give him a concentrated dose in terms of teaching. That he had set him a program where he could have a religion, which is in terms of aqidah, in terms of fiqh, in terms of Quran, in terms of hadith, and all of that, in terms of tajweed, and so on and so forth, and even the Arabic languages along with it. And Sheikh Al-Albani, he had finished reciting the whole of the Quran with the riwayah of Hafs an Asim, which is the riwayah which all of you recite on it, riwayah Hafs an Asim, and he had been given ijazah with that. Now somebody asked me, was he memorizing of the whole Quran? No, he was not. And this is a question being put by a number of people. Did he memorize the whole of the Quran? No, he did not. And that is not really, for example, a deficiency in the Shaykh. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he was struggling as well to keep up with memorization of the whole Quran. Reason behind this, because the Shaykh, his field was different. Of course, he memorizes all those verses which are of concern to his field and which are of concern to establish a hujjah on a person. But to memorize the whole of the Quran, I remember him, for example, narrating a story where he, one day, coming to the masjid, and the Imam was late, and that was on the Fajr of the Friday. The Fajr of the Friday, in the Shafi'iyya madhab, that the Imam has to recite what? Surat Sajda in the first rak'ah, and Surat Al-Dahr, Al-Insan, Hal Ata Al-Insani Hinun min Al-Dahr, in the second rak'ah. So the Sheikh was put into the spot because there was nobody there to lead the prayer, and the Imam wasn't there. So when he was put in the spot, he said that I wasn't, memorizing those 2 surah. I didn't memorize these 2 surah, and it wasn't really that good memorization of those 2 surah. So I started with, Surah Maryam, Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ayn. And so it shows it is not what? Surah Al-Sajda. But yet the people, when he said Allahu Akbar, for the sake of ruku', they went to what? Prostration. Because as I said, they are automated people. The people, they are really not listening to the surah. So because they got used to the Imam, as soon as he says Allah Akbar, he goes to what? To Sajda, because the first rak'ah. But he was saying Kaf, Ha, Ya. That means it is not Surah Al-Sajda, but yet the people prostrated in the first rak'ah. And then after he had finished the 2 rak'ah, he told the people, he started talking about the Sunnah. It is not actually that is from the Sunnah to recite in every Fajr or every Jum'ah, that is the 2 surah. Yes, the Prophet recited them a lot, but not in every Jum'ah. And here to show them that they are far away from the Sunnah. So that as well to support what I just said. He is not a half of the whole Quran, but he had finished the recitation of the Quran. He had given ijazah, that means he had taken the chain of the sanad from his father, that he recited the whole of the Quran. And also the Sheikh, he had also studied on the hands of Sheikh Sa'id al-Burhani, well-known Sheikh in Damascus, which was a Hanafi Sheikh, a book called Maraq al-Falah in the fiqh of al-Hanafi. Now, Maraq al-Falah, you could say one of these books that make the Sheikh to go away from the madhabs, not just the madhab al-Hanafi, from all the madhab. The Sheikh, when he used to be put into the masjid after he was taken from the school, and used to be put in the masjid there was halaqat. And because in Syria, Damascus, the main madhab was the Shafi'iyya. And remember, unfortunately, that era, the madhab were at their peak. So you have the madhab of Shafi'i was taken whole country. And there are people who are coming from migrators from Albania and other people who come beyond the river. They are from the madhab of Al-Hanafi. So the Sheikh, his father, which is Nuh, he was making sure that his son studies where? In the Hanafi circle. He's not to be taken into the what? The Shafi'i circle. Because this is like, for them, it's a different religion. It's not just a different madhab, it's a totally different religion. And that is why I said to you, Maraq al-Falah is one of the books that made Sheikh Al-Albani to keep away from these madhab, because in Maraq al-Falah there are things that a normal person would not accept. So much hatred as well towards the other madhab, like the madhab al-Shafi'i. In their books, Maraq al-Falah talks about as well things that it is as well, definitely it's not from the Sunnah. We're going to be talking about it in the book, inshallah, Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya, where Sheikh Al-Albani talks about it. But anyway, he slowly started, to detach himself from that circle and listen to other circles, like the Shafi'i circle. And he sees that there are things that here there that are more of closer to the Sunnah than with those who are with the Hanafi madhab. And that's how the Sheikh, as I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared him to be the person who he is, that is calling upon the book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet according to the companions' methodology. So the Sheikh, he studied as well so many books from the books of the Lugha, which is the language, and also he had studied and it was affecting as well his manhaj, so many circles from Al-Allama, Bahjat al-Baytar as well. He was keen to come to his circle. So those who say that the Sheikh had no sheikhs, he is a liar. Sheikh had sheikhs. The first sheikh of his is his father. So that's a lie, because they say the Sheikh had no sheikh. Okay? And the Sheikh who has no sheikh, that means his sheikh is a shaitan. That's what they say. Of course, this is the Sufis. They throw this and they make this as a propagation and scandal about the Sheikh. Well, it's not right. The Sheikh had a number of sheikhs. Also, he had taken from his father not just the knowledge of religion, but the knowledge of dunya. He mastered from his father how to fix the watches. And the watches at that time, they were not digital. They were not batteries. They were what? Pendulums and those, the truth things and all of those things. So, and by the way, those are precision. And you need to be very patient to fix them. And this is what the Sheikh Al-Albani used to have, patience. So it taught him as well, patience. And he started learning this until he had managed to have his own fixing watches shop. That is a watch shop to fix watches, and people used to come to him because they trust him, not just on the religion, they trust him on their watches. Used to bring their watches to him, and this, you could say, profession had given him not only the patience, but given him as well time to what? To study. Because you fix watches by, half an hour you fix about 3-4 watches or 2 watches, they get you enough money to support yourself and you don't have to really work again, and that gave him time to as well study. And he had split the shop into 2 segments. The first, which is the front one, is for meeting the customers, and the back one for his library, where he used to study, the Sheikh. And he had as well managed to get somebody to work for him. And this person has to work for him. The first one, he let him down, because as soon as he mastered the job, he left him and he went to open his own shop. So when he wanted another person to work for him, he made a deal with him. That is, not to leave him for 2 years. So if he masters this job, not to leave him for 2 years. He can't. So he made terms on him not to leave him once he masters this this profession, that he will stay with the Sheikh, because the Sheikh wanted to invest that time which is after Fajr to go and study. So the Sheikh, inshallah, when we come to how he was the person given the key for the biggest library at that time, that is Al-Maktab al-Zahiriyya. Sheikh, he had directed himself towards the knowledge of al-Hadith, even though that his father was, you could say, a blind follower for the Hanafi madhab. And he warned his son not to preoccupy himself with this topic, which is al-hadith. But Sheikh Al-Albani, slowly, he was going towards this knowledge, and he had learned this hadith in the first 20 years of his age. And he was affected and influenced by some of the written articles at that time, namely Majallat al-Manar, the magazine of al-Manar, which was headed by Sheikh Muhammad Rashid Rida, rahimahullah, which you could say that it is sort of the Salafi manhaj. And the first thing that he had made was in hadith, he was rewritten the whole of the Mughni عن حمل الأسفار في تخريج ما في الأحياء من الأخبار في الحافظ العراقي. And I remember the story of Sheikh Al-Albani regarding this issue, that he didn't have money whatsoever to buy that book. So what he did, he went to the shopkeeper, or the librarian, or you could say the book shopkeeper, and he had his books outside, and they are in yellow pages. Some of them are old, and he was looking at them, and he can't afford, to buy them, but he used to rent them, take them for a particular time, pay money, and he gives it back. And when he takes it, what he does at home, he hasn't got a photocopy, has he? So he rewrites them. So the first thing that he done, he rewrote the whole of that Al-Mughni, which is what's Takhrij al-Ahadith of Kitab Ihya Ulumuddin, al-Hafiz al-Iraqi. And that benefited him, and he liked it so much. And that every time he rents the book and the shopkeeper is happy to have received the money, he is not as happy as him, renting the book. And that's what reminds me of Sheikh Mashhur used to say to us, when I buy the book from the bookshop, and the bookshop sometimes maybe put the price up, he's happy to get the money, but he's not as happy as me, as I've got the book. You haven't got the book, it's in my possession. So you're not cheating me, I'm cheating you. I'm the one who took the knowledge. You took money from what? Money is going to go, but the knowledge stays with you. Money goes, the knowledge stays. And even after your death, it stays. This is the knowledge. So the Sheikh, he was keen to get his hand on any article, any book at that time, regardless, even if it takes his money, which is for his food. Until, as I said, he had this shop, which he had produced him with enough money, but his father warned him so much to get into this hadith until he disowned him. He came one day to his shop and he said to him, basically, you have your own religion and I have my own religion. This is how it is for the Hanafi madhab. That is, you have your deen and I have my deen. It's like that. So his father disowned him. Why? Because he's going into the hadith. But he was so good and kind to his father regardless of that. But the Sheikh Al-Albani, as I said, he has done apostasy according to his father's terminology. I mean, this is really, you should not be doing that. You should not be going or leaving the Hanafi madhab. But as I said, at that time, these madhab, they were at their peak. And the person, when he abides with the madhab, is like abiding with the religion. So he says, the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, that it was, alhamdulillah, a gate which has been opened for me. And not only that, I used to make a deal with the person who is in charge of the Maktab al-Zahiriyya. The Maktab al-Zahiriyya is a library which is in Damascus, and it is one of the oldest. It has more than 10,000 manuscripts. Manuscript, that means what? Written by their original authors, dating back as Imam Ahmad at that time. And because of, remember, most of the Imams, they are in Bilad al-Sham, in those areas. So you have manuscripts of Imam Ahmad, manuscripts of Imam Abu Hanifa, manuscripts as well of Imam Shafi'i, and lots from that time. Imam Ibn Hazm as well, Ibn Andalusi was there, some of the manuscripts, and some of the shuruh, the interpretation of those books as well from their shuyukh, and it is on the footprint of those books. So they were there. So the Sheikh, he had treasure, basically, with him. So what he used to do, he used to go to the library as early as possible. And sometimes he waits for the librarian to open the library. Until the librarian, he had trusted him so much that he gave him a copy of a key. Or maybe the only key. And the Sheikh comes straight away after Fajr to Maktab al-Dari. He's got his own key. He opens it, and this Maktab al-Dari, as I said, it's like a football playground. It's a big one, massive. And the Sheikh used to read in it at least 6 hours. At least a day, 6 hours. From the morning. Sometimes he had to reach to some of these manuscripts on the top shelf, and they need a ladder. And he goes on top of the ladder, and he stays there, doesn't want to go back and take a book, go and take it into the table and reading it. He would read it while he's on top of the ladder. So he spent about 3-4 hours on the ladder, reading the book, instead of going down and coming up. But that was not a ladder, small one. We're talking about even higher than this masjid. So he goes there and reading, and he finishes. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him from breaking his legs or arms, alhamdulillah. But there's a story I need to narrate for you, which is the story of Sheikh Al-Albani with a missing paper, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it, as you could say, a key for his knowledge and the way he turns to be. Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, which is we call it the the story of the missing page. And the Sheikh Al-Albani, by the way, he had made for the Maktaba Al-Fahrasa. Remember, there was no computers at that time. He made the Fahrasa. What is the Fahrasa? Contents of the whole Maktaba. He made it. And it's by the Sheikh Al-Albani. So he says here, rahimahullah, that I've never had this idea in my mind, that is to make a contents for the whole of the library, because I don't have that time for it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He wants something, He will lay down its reasons. And I was struck and I was tried by an illness which had struck my sights. And that is a long time ago. He's talking about when he was, he's in his youth age. So some of the doctors told him that he should be relaxing, and he should abandon as well reading and writing, and he should just as well rest as well from working into the watches, because the watches needs as well concentration, at least 6 months. So he said, at the beginning I was doing what the doctor was telling me to do, and then after 2 weeks something came to my mind. He said, while I'm into this boring, you could say, holiday of mine, which is 6 months, why don't you just make something which I claim is not going to affect my health? I'm going to make something not going to affect my health. So I have remembered a letter which was a manuscript letter in the bookshop. It's called Dhamm al-Malahi, which is to Ibn Abi Dunya. So he said that this letter wasn't yet to be printed out, taken out to the outside world to see. So why don't you just make somebody, not myself, to rewrite it for me, and they bring it to me. So while I'm in my holiday, I just make something out of my time, and then I would compare it to the origin, and I would as well makes me as well to study it. So what I said, I asked somebody to rewrite the letter, and after a while, after the person who was rewriting it, he went to the middle of the letter, and he found that there is something missing, because the following page is not it's not matching to the page which is before it. So I said to him, maybe try again to find another page, or maybe it's not there. It's about 4 pages missing, but he could not find it. So I made sure that there was some pages missing. So some ideas came to my mind. How can I find those missing pages? So those letters, by the way, they come into a big volume, which is, they call it jald, which is mujallad, that is the leather from cover to cover, and in it there's so many letters belonging to many writers and many scholars. So that letter is being sewn as well by the person who sews these letters. He said maybe those 4 pages, which are called malzama, they're being sewn into different place of that mujallad. So he said, what I did, I started looking into the whole mujallad bit by bit, trying to find out where are the 4 missing pages. And I couldn't find them. So I said, maybe it is not in this mujallad, but it's actually in the whole section of those 4 missing pages. So I started looking into them one by one and reading. And while I'm reading, I'm coming up to names of some of those treasures of those books. And I used to write them down as well. This book for this letter and so on and so forth, while I'm looking for that. And I've never seen as well those Hufaz books coming, before. So my knowledge has been increased now while I'm looking for those 4 pages. I couldn't find it. So I said to myself, maybe it is in the section of the whole hadith. So I went to the section of the whole hadith, book after book, trying to find those 4 missing pages. But at the same time, I'm recording things which I've never seen as well before. And still telling to myself, maybe I'll find it, maybe I'll find it, until I read the whole manuscript of the whole Maktab al-Zahiriyya. And there were more than 10,000 manuscripts, all of them written one by one. And I never felt in despair to find those 4 pages. But the thing about it is that when I didn't find them, I looked and I found a treasure here. All these recordings that I've recorded while I'm doing it, during those months, lots of knowledge during these years. So, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared me for another stage to read them again. So I read them again, all of them, and now rewriting it bit by bit. And then the third stage that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared me for, which is that to read them page by page. Each hadith that I find, I will give who narrates it, okay, until I got 40 volumes, his own, 40 volumes. Each volume contains 400 pages. Each page contains 1 hadith, who had narrated it, where does it come from. And this is his treasure. This is where the foundation, the basis of all of his knowledge coming from. 40 volumes, each one contains 400 pages. Each page contains what? 400 hadith. So how many hadith you've got? 400 hadith multiplied by 40. So every time he refers to a hadith, he goes to his treasure, where those hadith coming from. And that is why he says that those people who are playing around these days with the hadith, they don't know how the person becomes a muhaddith. All this knowledge, that is 40 volumes, each volume contains 400 hadith. Each hadith, how and who is that narrated it, who had checked it, who authenticated. That's basically the foundation of the knowledge of the Sheikh Al-Albani before he became a muhaddith. Just to tell you, brothers, it's not an easy thing to become a muhaddith. It's not an easy, it's one of the, you could say, the most difficult topic at hand in the Islamic science. Right, the Sheikh, rahimahullah, he had made a number of books, and he started writing when he was just in his early 20 years, and he had written the first book, which is Tahdhir al-Sajid min ittikhad al-Qubur masajid, that is the warning of the person who pray to take the graveyards as masajid, mosques, masajid. And from the first books that he had made takhrij of, Al-Rawd al-Nadir fi tartib wa takhrij Mu'jam al-Tabarani al-Saghir, and the Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, he had also beside it in the hadith, he was keen to read the books of Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah and his student, which is Sheikh al-Islam ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. Those are from the well-known Salafi scholars. Also the Sheikh Al-Albani, he was holding the da'wah for the Tawheed, that is monotheism, and Sunnah in Syria. And he had visited and paid visit to a number of mashayikh in Damascus, and lots of discussion happened between him and them regarding Tawheed, regarding following, regarding blind following, regarding the madhahib, regarding the innovations. So the Sheikh, he had faced a number of people, a number of scholars, especially from those who are Sufis and those who are innovators, who had opposed the Sheikh and fought the Sheikh, and of course they called him the well-known title, that is Wahhabi and Dal. Wahhabi, Dal, deviant, misguided Wahhabi. And he used to warn the people from him. Even Wahhabi means like Saudi Arabia, but at that time he didn't receive a penny from Saudi Arabia. But any person who studies such a thing, Wahhabi. The reason behind this is that at that time, if you remember, the Ottomans, which is the Dawla al-Uthmaniyya, the Turks, the Ottomans, which are their state, which is in Ankara, in Turkey, they were you could say, holding the whole Muslim land. And at their final stage of their era, they used to be Sufis. At the time of Sultan al-Hamid, most of the people used to have lots of innovations. And then you need to, for example, pay a visit to their Masjid al-Haram. They used to, instead of saying Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, they used to sing songs, which is not Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. And the da'wah of Sheikh Muhammad Wahhab, just about 100 years before Sheikh Al-Albani had appeared, was well spread in the Jazirat al-Arab, and they used to prevent these people who used to make Hajj and Umrah chanting other than Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. And because of that, lots of Sufis at that time, they used to spread rumors about this da'wah, that they hate the Prophet ﷺ. The people there, they don't like the Messenger of Allah, they don't like him to, for example, to make sallallahu alayhi wa sallam after the Prophet, after the adhan, which is not true of course. But the mu'adhan used to say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam openly, which is not the right case. It is actually for you as a person who listens. As for the mu'adhan, he stops with la ilaha illallah. But now in some of the masajids, in some of the countries like our country, after la ilaha illallah, you say wa sallallahu ma'ala sayyidina Muhammad and all these bid'ah. So when the Muhammad Wahhab and his followers prevented such a thing, they made rumors that he hates the Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Sheikh also, he had found so many scholars who are upon the same da'wah, and they have encouraged him to be staying or fast, to hold fasted to the manhaj, that is Bahjat al-Bitar and Sheikh Abdul Fattah al-Imam, all of these scholars from Syria, and Sheikh Tawfiq al-Bidra. As for the Sheikh's activities regarding the da'wah, the Sheikh used to have regular classes. A week, he had 2 classes. And the Sheikh, regarding this issue, I remember he was saying that he used to have sometimes speaker outside, because people used to be not just inside the house as well, used to come so many that the house cannot take them, used to be outside the house. So a little speaker coming from a little, simple system to transfer the voice of the Sheikh to those people who are outside the house. So twice a week, and not just normal students or normal people would come to these classes, but even people who are highly qualified teachers, from the religious teachers. One of them, for example, I remember that he studied with the Sheikh Al-Albani while he was in his shop preparing watches, until into this systematic studies he became a doctor, PhD, into hadith. And in his classes, while he teaches the students in Syria and Damascus, actually he was graduated in his PhD from Germany, outside. So he went to teach in Damascus, and he says, this is really amazing. How can I teach hadith to you while the teacher of the teachers is in a watch repair shop? I'm teaching you the hadith because I'm called doctor, PhD. But the person who is the teacher of the teachers, he is my teacher and the teacher of my teachers. He is now repairing watches in a shop. But because he's not having this systematic or the called qualification, that's why they don't put him as a teacher in universities. Of course, the Sheikh, later on, he was taken to Saudi Arabia to be the teacher of the University of Medina. But that's based upon because of Sheikh bin Baz. He had given this tazkiyah. Otherwise, these people, for example, if you now teach in some of the countries, what sort of qualification do you have? They don't ask you who's your teacher. Qualification in terms of, have you got BSc? Have you got MSc? And BSc and MSc and PhD, I'm sorry to say to you, maybe it's good in other fields, but in religion, it is not really that what you think. Because most of it is that the student himself, when he became a PhD in a specific topic in religion, you have to look into the history, how he became into that field. In our country, or the Muslim countries, except for a few, that is, religion comes at the end, and it's the lowest. So if a person who is in the school system as a teenager, the first thing comes to his mind to be either a pilot, a doctor, an engineer. But those needs what? High marks in your GCSEs to get into the university to study such a thing. But you're not going to get these high marks, so you get these thick students who get 60 below, 60% below. 60% below, oh, religion faculties is open to you. Religious faculty is open to you. So he goes to the religion because his what? He doesn't like the religion, it's because of his what? His mark. But now this is a system. So now when you're a thick person, you're going to make him BSc, still he's thick. And then he comes as well into MSc, still thick, but with the title. PhD with thick and title. That's most of them. So he's a PhD person, but thick. And that is why he will be there into that field. If you move him a bit, he doesn't understand anything. And that is why maybe he will spend his life, for example, searching into a hadith, as Sheikh Nasir he said. That's why he left the studies as well, Sheikh Nasir. He left it the second year, he left it. He was in the university and he left it. Because he thought that his teacher's telling him to make a research about a hadith which is mawdu', fabricated. Why? Because the doctor of his is thick. He understands this, oh, make this hadith, oh, why should I spend my time investigating a hadith which is what? Fabricated. The Prophet didn't say it. That's why he left the studies. And he had made his first book when he was in his first years of studies. And when he made the doctor, PhD, was teacher to make an introduction for it, in the introduction of that book, and I know it, which is Kitab al-Muhammad, which is to do with Muhammad. Muhammad means lawyership, to be a lawyer. He said that this person, he is in his first studies and he's making me to make an introduction as for him, and wallahi, his knowledge is more than my knowledge. The Sheikh Mashhur at his first stage. So here, as I said to you, you find from these people who are graduated, and I'm sorry to say that, but it really irritates me when I find that one of my friends, he was praying in his own masjid, that one day this person who is a leader, an imam, who sets an example as a model for others, right, he was doing, I can't remember which one, the sujood tilawa or sujood sahw, one of them. He was doing sujood tilawa or sujood sahw. You understand me? Either he forgot something and he made sujood sahw, or he made a prostration for recitation. He read a verse, and instead of saying Allahu Akbar, he said sujood tilawa or sujood sahw. One of them. I'll tell you one of them because I'll tell you what has happened after it, because he's setting a model. I have an example to be followed. Sujood tilawa. Some of the people, he was astonished, but they can't dare to ask because he's got a PhD. Thick PhD, so I call it thick PhD. PhD, well, they can't say anything. But one of them, you know, what is this? He said, you have to tell the people, they have to know. He couldn't answer. And my friend, he is you know, just like maybe, what is, well, I could say, a taxi driver. How can a taxi driver challenge somebody who's PhD? People will not listen to him. But you know that this person is thick. So he said to the people, this is wrong. Who are you? Who is he? He's a PhD. So, well, he did not have his PhD until he had failed in his GCSE. That's why he had his PhD. Now, later on, 3-4 months later on, another person. Let's say that doctor said sujood tilawa. Now, this incident, the other one, it said sujood sahw. One of them had done this, I don't know. So the other incident, this person who had led the prayer and the doctor was not there, the PhD man. And he's not even MSc or something. And he was sujood sahw. So he said, sujood sahw. After the prayer, I asked him, what is happening? He said, analogy, qiyas on sujood tilawa of the doctor. PhD, he's done this. So making qiyas. Do you understand that? Analogy. He done this, must be as well. Anything that happened was sujood tilawa. Because he said to you, he set as a model. And that is why I said to you, that is what had happened. In the Sheikh Al-Albani this time, he was repairing watches while his student who was grown up to graduate from his hadith until he reached PhD and he got it from outside the country, came back to teach and he said, Wallah, it is shame on me to go and teach you hadith while the teachers of the teachers, he is repairing watches in his shop. And this man, he was in Germany or whatever country it was outside. And he used to have lots of shubuhat, doubts, given to him by his PhD professors regarding his religion. And he used to send messages, letters to the Sheikh Al-Albani. And Sheikh Al-Albani, to have some help, support me. Sheikh Al-Albani used to as well reply to him how to reply upon these people who are, they call them Orientalists, or doctors or PhDs who are trying to put doubts in the mind of the students. Yarhamukallah. The Sheikh, rahimahullah, he had the 2 classes every week, and he used to teach the following books. Fath al-Majid, which is well known, Sharh Kitab al-Tawheed, Sheikh Abdul Wahhab. Al-Rawda al-Nadiyya, للشوكاني, which is with Sharh, that is Sadiq Hassan Khan. Al-Ba'ath al-Hathif, Sharh Ibn Kathir, Sharh, which is the Ibn Kathir, Sharh Ahmad Shakir. Fiqh al-Sunnah, which is well known to Sayyid Sabiq. Usul al-Fiqh, to Abdul Wahhab Khallaf, and Minhaj al-Islam fi al-Hukm li Muhammad Asad. Those are the books. As for his trips, used to be well-known trips and organized. Every month he would make a trip, at least 1 week, to all these areas in all these provinces in Syria, and even in Jordan. He was in Jordan, where he resided in Jordan later on, and he died in Jordan as well. And this spread the the hatred amongst those people who are against the Da'wah Salafiyya, especially the Sufis, and they used to make allegation before the leaders that this person, he wants to make a coup and so on and so forth, and that what led to his imprisonment. So let's just talk about some of that patience of his, and that is, in the beginning of 1960s, the Sheikh, he was under the watch of the government, which is the Syrian government, and the Syrian government is as bad as today as well, and is even worse. Even though he was far away from politics, the Sheikh, but still there are some people had made allegation against him, which are lies, which made those governments to put him in prison. And the first time he was in prison, that it was before 1967, and he was arrested for 1 month in the Qal'a, well-known prison in Sham, Damascus. And this is not the same prison of Sheikh Nasir Uddin Albani, by the way. Sijn al-Qal'a. Sheikh Nasir Uddin Albani, he was imprisoned in that prison, and he died in it. And 1967, also the after that as well, when the war was at its peak, 1945, almost, the Sheikh again was arrested, but this time for 8 months. And in that period, he had actually checked, made tahqiq to Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim al-Mundhiri, and he had as well met a number of scholars and Syrian knowledge in the prison itself, so it had a big effect on him in the prison. 8 months. As for his books that he had written, and all his books that he had checked, we have, number one, first of all, he used to come to the circles of Sheikh Muhammad Bahid al-Baytar, as we said, with other scholars like Izzuddin and others, and they used to read Al-Hamasa, Abi Tammam, and also the Jami'at Dimashq, Kulliyat Dimashq, the faculty of Sharia in the University of Dimashq. They asked him to make takhrij, that is the hadith. Takhrij means to give what are the sources of the hadith, for hadith al-buyu', that is hadith which is linked to transactions, into a mawsu'ah, encyclopedia of fiqh, which the university decided to do it in 1955. Also, he was chosen to be one of the members of Hadith Lajna. Lajna is a committee, and this was done at the time when there is a unity between Egypt and Syria, and this is to spread the book of the Sunnahs. And also the Jamia Salafiyya in India asked him to be the head of the shuyukh in the hadith, even though he hasn't got the fiqh PhD. They asked him to be the head of the hadith section in the Jamia Salafiyya, the University of Salafiyya in India, but he apologized because of there's a war between Pakistan and India at that time. It was difficult for him to accompany his family and his children. Also, we have the Minister of Education in Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Hussein ibn Abdullah al-Sheikh, that is the year 1388. He asked him to be the person in charge on the studies, Islamic studies, which are high Islamic studies, in the University of Mecca, but the Sheikh's circumstances prevented him from doing so. Also, he was chosen to be a member in the high committee, Lajna of the Jami' al-Islami al-Madina, that is from the year 1395 to the year 1398. And also the students, the Muslim students in Spain asked him to come, and he gave a well-known lecture which was printed later on. It was Al-Hadith Hujjah bi nafsihi fil aqaid wal ahkam. That is, the hadith is to be a hujjah, a proof in itself, whether it is in aqidah or ahkam. Also, he had given a visit to Qatar, and he had given a lecture there, where his lecture also was printed. Look, all his lectures were to be what? Printed, and books. Like we are Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya, it was a lecture. And we are teaching as well, a lecture. So it's the Sheikh, subhanallah, as we're going to be coming to it, inshallah. And that is Manzilat al-Sunnah fil Islam. Also, the Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz, he had chosen him to be the person who is in charge of da'wah in Egypt and Morocco and Britain, to call for the book on the Sunnah and the Manhaj al-Salafi. He was called to a number of conferences, and he apologized because he didn't have time. He paid visit to Kuwait and Emirates, and he had given lots of lectures as well. Also, the Sheikh, he had lots of books, more than 100, almost 200. Some of them are in volumes, like for example, Irwa al-Ghalil, Silsila al-Sahiha, Silsila al-Da'ifa, and one of the great books that you should really have, that is Sifat Salat al-Nabi, which is a book like that thick, it's not that much, but Sifat Salat al-Nabi, that the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ, just like you're seeing it, from Allahu Akbar to the salutation. That book, in it, the beginning of it is manhaj, methodology. You need to read that, which is to do with the madhab. As for the last thing that you could say, just before he died, he had won the prize of King Faisal for the Islamic studies. That is in the year 1419, that is 1999. And it was to do with his elaboration in making the Sunnah prevalent in the Muslim world. As for the scholars praising to the Sheikh, we have Sheikh Nasir Uddin Albani, rahimahullah. He says the following statements: I have never seen any person underneath the skies at this time who is more knowledgeable in hadith than the Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah. And he said hafidhahullah, of course, at that time. And Sheikh Ibn Baz was asked about a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that is the hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ لِهَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ مَنْ يُجَدِّدُ لَهَا دِينَهَا عَلَى رَأْسِ كُلِّ مِئَةِ سَنَةٍ. That is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would send at the beginning of every century a person, a man, who would revive its religion. He said, and he was asked, who is that mujaddid in this century? He said, Sheikh Muhammad Nasir Albani. That is Sheikh Ibn Baz, Sheikh Muhammad, Sheikh Nasir Albani, he is the mujaddid. The mujaddid is very important to know him, because it's the person he would set you the manhaj upon which you should be upon. And every century, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that means the beginning of the century. The beginning of the century meaning the Islamic century. They say, for example, such and such person, he is the mujaddid of the 20th century. Well, we say to him, take that for yourself, okay, let it be, because the 20th century is not yet. We are still in the 15th century. So if you want to have the 20th century, go ahead, because they are registered, they are dating by the what? The Christian date, not the Islamic date. And that is one of the conditions of the mujaddid, is that at the beginning of the century, his knowledge will be so spread, and his fatawa is all over the world. So at the beginning of the 15th century, that is when we had 1400, we know for a fact that Sheikh Al-Albani, Sheikh Ibn Baz, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen were to be renowned scholars and well known, their fatawa. As for those who they claim to be mujaddid, which are not, they either died before, or they're too young to be known at that time. Do you understand me? So this is how you define a mujaddid. Right, we have as well Sheikh Muhammad Salih al-Uthaymeen, rahimahullah. he says about the Sheikh, I know that the Sheikh that he has, he said, from my meeting with him, which is a few times, that he is eager to work upon the Sunnah and fight the bid'ah, whether it is in the Aqidah or in any act of religion. As from my reading to his, what he had written from the books, I have known him to be with a lot of knowledge, condensed lot of knowledge, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had benefited lots of people through his books from the knowledge, as from the manhaj as well, and going towards the knowledge of hadith. And this is, alhamdulillah, a big fruit for the Muslim to harvest and cultivate. As for the checking, lots of them, so many. As for the Allama al-Mufassir Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti, that is, he died before all these mashayikh. This Allama, he's the person who was he had made Allah al-Bayan. Allah al-Bayan is a well-known book, which is interpretation of the Quran. Allah al-Bayan fi Idah al-Quran bil-Quran. Sheikh Al-Albani says about this person, because when he was teaching Medina, he was a teacher as well of the Quran and the Tafsir. Sheikh Al-Albani says about that Sheikh that every time that he talks with a person and delivers a lecture, it's like like the Quran is in between his eyes. It's like reading the Quran from front of him. But he says, Sheikh Al-Albani, whenever he is in debate with somebody, he fails to bring those verses which would support him. This is not what say he's saying that he would have wished that he had as strong when he makes his lecture as is in the debate. And this is, subhanAllah, is a gift. It's being given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to some people and some scholars, that he is very strong in debate. Sheikh Al-Albani is to be known the most strongest, beyond any doubt, in debates. And that is why one of the shuyukhs, great shuyukh, he said, Alhamdulillah that you are upon the Salafi manhaj, ya Sheikh. If you were in another manhaj, you would have really made us tired debating with you. Because the way he makes the debate, it's absolutely impossible for you to win against him. Because of a number of issues. Number one, which is the knowledge, of course. Number two, the knowledge in the debate. Number three, his memory regarding everything that you say. He would refer you back. And number four, his badiha. He's quick in spotting what is the mistake and the weakness in your saying. Okay, you would direct it towards the point straight away. And that is why he was so strong. Nobody would dare, even from the enemies of the Sunnah, to challenge Sheikh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, in terms of debates. Right, the Sheikh Muhammad al-Amin Shanqiti, this scholar, is in tafsir. He says, one of his students, he said that Sheikh Shanqiti used to respect Sheikh Al-Albani, such a respect which was so peculiar, that so unique, that every time he sees the Sheikh Al-Albani passing while he is teaching, straight in the haram, straight away he would interrupt and he would cut off his class and he stand up to go and shake the hand of Sheikh Al-Albani. As soon as he's teaching, he would just, leave his students and go to shake the hand of Sheikh Al-Albani because he respects him so much because of the hadith. Sheikh Muqbil, who is a well-known Sheikh of the Yemen, Sheikh of Yemen, well-known scholar as well, and he says that what I believe, وَأَدِينُ اللَّهَ بِهِ, that I'm going to face Allah with, that the Sheikh Al-Albani is from the Mujaddideen, the one who revived the religion, whom the Prophet ﷺ sayings would be fit for them, that is in Allah. Allah would send at the beginning of every century a person who would revive for this ummah its religion. Before I talk about this wasiyah, Sheikh Al-Albani, I will talk about some of just one or two, three stories here. Sheikh Al-Albani, he used to know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is, that is, the Messenger of Allah, he said, Ta'ahad al-Quran. Ta'ahad al-Quran means never forget the Quran. Keep all the time to the Quran. Read the Quran. So he used to say that when I was a kid, even in my shop, when I used to repair the shop, the watches, I used to put a mushaf, which is the Quran, in front of me. So every time I have a bit of spare of time, I would grab it and read and memorize and re-memorize and recheck and so on and so forth. And that is because I used to know the hadith of the Prophet Ta'ahad al-Quran. I want to keep the Quran all the time close to me. It never came to my mind to preoccupy myself with this nasheed, he says. What's nasheed? What is the latest nasheed? What is the latest? These people, they like nasheed. So in his spare time, he used to what? Read the Quran. Read the Quran and read it again. Read it again. Subhanallah. Imam Al-Albani, rahimahullah, also it is like when he gives a lecture, he's so powerful that you think that he's reading from a piece of paper. This is one scholar or student of knowledge. He said that I paid a visit to the Sheikh Al-Albani, and he was so strong, and that was in 1414. That's about 18 years ago. And it was in Amman, in Jordan. And there's so many students of knowledge next to him from Kuwait, and they were asking him questions. One of them asked him a question which is to do with the manhaj and working in amal al-siyasi, like, election and candidate of elections and so on. So the Sheikh looked at the table, and then in his library, and then he started responding to that student of knowledge, and he said 30 minutes almost in his answer, where he did not have any hesitation or any sort of stoppage in the middle, or any sort of hint that he doesn't know what he's saying. 30 minutes non-stop. After he finished, I came to his desk just to see, was he reading from a book? That's how powerful he was. Was he reading from a book? 30 minutes. Not a hint. And that is why I said his lectures used to be printed as what? Books. That's how the Sheikh was powerful in his lectures, rahimahullah. Sheikh Abdurrahman Albani. Abdurrahman Albani died not a long time ago, 2 years ago. I paid a visit to the Sheikh Abdurrahman Albani as well, rahimahullah. One of the great students as well of Sheikh Al-Albani. This person used to be a Sufi. He used to be a Sufi. In Bilad al-Sham, his Sheikh was Ahmad Kaftaro. Kaftaro, person was known to be Sufism. And he says how I became a Salafi. So he used to say that in Syria I used to come to 2 classes. One in the morning and one in the evening. In the morning, Ahmad Kaftaro. And in the evening, Sheikh Al-Albani. But Sheikh Al-Albani, whenever he sees me, he never told me anything about Ahmad Kaftaro. Don't go to him, he's bad. These people, when they warn you about something, when they say this, actually they are really emphasizing that, go there. Because once you are being told off to, you're curious, isn't it? To know, why is he telling me off to? But that wasn't the way of Sheikh Al-Albani. He kept he was talking about, and the Sheikh, he had seen from him something that he hasn't seen from his Sheikh Ahmad Kaftaro, the Sufi man. This person, every time that he would be, would be sort of telling person if somebody was like, give him money. It's a lecture. What is it giving me money? I'm giving a lecture for that. But with other person, he would even give you a hint. Like you see giving the doctors, you could give me. He started to compare between this and that. This person, he would, if somebody wants to kiss his hand, he would pull it away, no way. And that person, he would give you his hand to kiss it. That's another thing. Until he said, I can't forget that this story my Sheikh used to say, Ahmed, which put me off from the whole Sufism, and I would like to rate this story for you just to know how the Sufis treat Tawheed, monotheism, and how they know about polytheism. Look at that. He says, my Sheikh Ahmed Kaftara, he said that a Sheikh Sufi was traveling the land and claiming that he was walking on the water. One of these murid, that means a follower, blind follower. Now he wanted to accompany him, but the Sheikh refused so many times. But after his persistence, that he had agreed on one condition, that he will follow him in everything, and he will obey him in everything. So he agreed. So when they came to the water, the Sheikh said to him, I would say, when I'm walking, Ya Allah, oh Allah, and I will walk on the water. This is a story, by the way, it's not. Don't put it into your permanent files, temporary files, please. Or you to use it just to make sure that how these Sufis treat Tawheed and polytheism. And if you want to follow me, you should be repeating the word, Ya Shaykhi, oh Shaykhi, oh Shaykhi, oh Shaykhi. Where the Shaykh says what? Oh Allah, Ya Allah, oh Allah, help me. And this one, oh Shaykhi, help me, help me. And then you will be walking just like me on the water. So while they were walking in the water, as they reached the middle of the lake, Shaitan came and made waswasa to the follower. The person was not the Shaykh, to the follower. He said to him, you are saying, oh Shaykhi, but your Shaykh is saying, oh Allah, oh Allah. Why don't you just say it directly, just like your Shaykh, oh Allah? So when that murid said it, straight away he fell in the water. He drowned in the water. And he started saying, oh Shaykhi now. Help, help Shaykhi. So after that, the Shaykh came and he started insulting him and telling him, I told you, you are not like me. You are saying you are, oh Allah, but I should be your tasbih. You should be saying, oh Shaykhi. So the murid, he repented from this monotheism and he's come back to say, oh Shaykhi, and he was saved from the drowning. This is what the Sufis, they believe what is Tawheed and what is not Tawheed. So this is what the Sheikh Albani had said, and this is what made me leave. He says that Sheikh Albani, if he did not benefit me of anything, he would benefit me in three things. I can't forget that for him. That he had taken me from the Sufism into the Salafism, and he had taken, and as well, he had made, 2 books. Because I asked him for that. That is Adab al-Zifaf. Adab al-Zifaf, the etiquettes of marriage, because Sheikh Abdul Rahman Bani, he had got married. So he had asked the Sheikh to make this book to talk about this, and as well, Ahkam al-Janaz, because Sheikh Abdul Rahman Bani asked him to do that regarding how to bury the person in the funeral procession. And he also as well taught me to be a person who is humble. And Jazahullahu khairah. And I used to see him all the time, keen not to waste his time. Very important, the time. Sheikh Al-Albani, one of these scholars, he does not waste the time. All the time, his time, he says like, Al-Mu'minu kal-Minshar. The believer is like the soul. Going up, he would eat wood. Going down, he would eat wood. Whether he is listening or whether he is giving a talk, he's what? Benefiting. And they should be all the time, brothers, keen not to waste your time. Al-waqtu kas-sayf, in lam taqsa'hu qata'ak. That is, the time is like the sword. If you don't break it, it will break you. If you don't cut it, it will cut you. So don't you ever think, oh, I've got plenty of time. اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. That is, have 5 before 5's coming. One of them is what? فراغك قبل شغلك. That is your spare time before you get preoccupied. And believe me, when you are preoccupied, you don't have time. You will be wishing. And that is why Jamaluddin al-Qasim, one of the great scholars in Bilad Sham, used to pass upon these people, used to be wasting their times in the cafeteria and playing, dice. He would say, I wish that time can be sold and purchased. I could purchase it from them. But time cannot be purchased, can it? Sheikhna rahimahullah, he was one of the great sheikhs of this era, as I said, and I would say by this I have come to the conclusion, which is the death of the Sheikh rahimahullah, talking about that from his wasaya, that he's counseled us. Number one, he made his wasiyah, which is written. We have read it. That is number one. I counsel my wife and my children and every person who loves me that if he had got the news of my death, that is to call for forgiveness and mercy upon me, and not to we call it wail, niyaha, or to cry with loud voice. Number 2 is to hasten in burying me, and he should not. He said, I don't want him to tell my relatives or my brothers, except for those who are needed to be preparing me, needed to prepare me, and to make the person Izzat Khadr Abu Abdullah, my neighbor and my friend, who is a very genuine friend, he says, and to whoever he wills as well, he chooses for him to help him in washing me. I remember that person, I talked about it. Izzat Khadr, the one who's got what? Did I tell you? Right. This person, Izzat Khadr, make dua for him. This person is, Izzat Khadr is one of the very close people to the Sheikh. And believe it or not, he's not as knowledgeable, he's not that knowledgeable. I mean we call him our brother. But he was so faithful to the Sheikh, so much. And he's a person you could say, we have almost, as Sheikh Al-Albani said, ijma' from most of the people in Jordan, all of them, they love him, that person. Now, this person never ever would be annoyed with anybody. I've never seen him annoyed. I would like to see him annoyed. I've never seen him annoyed. And because of that, he was, by the way, married to 4 women. Okay, 4 sisters. And the 4 women, he married the first one, of course, because she's his cousin and loved her. But after that, he was looking for the sake of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the women that he married, I remember very well, she was crippled. She had something wrong with her legs. But when he married her, he didn't even to look at her, just want to marry her. So why I'm not caring about her. Son is just, nobody wants to marry because she's crippled. But she's graduated from the university in the faculty of Sharia. So she's helping him to write some of the hadith where he takes them in his pocket and he gives it to the people as well. All of them, they live in one house. I had a phone call recently in the Hajj with him. That's why I said to you, maybe I didn't talk about him. So yeah, just this Hajj, I called and he was there and I talked to him. And he was, subhanallah, as happy as he sounded when you met him a long time ago. And mashallah, he said to me, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given me my now number child. It's a girl. Anybody would like to tell me, they give me the number? His last, which is 2 months ago, has been born. Come on, give me a number. Yalla. 9, 20, 15, 32. First.
4 times 5.
4 times 20 is 40th child. 40. He's got his army. Make sure when you invite him, you've got plenty of food. 40th child. 40th child, I mean, maybe they got badges every time they come to him. The name of the person and which mother belongs to. But after that, somebody told me, it didn't sound like this, but he has cancer. Just developed it recently. So make dua to him, please, everybody, that this person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cure him. I never thought he had it. He even lost his weight, but I didn't see him. I couldn't get to see him because we were busy. Anyway, coming back, the Sheikh, rahimahullah, he says, for him to wash me, because he's my neighbor and he's my friend and faithful friend. And whoever he chooses for him to, as well, to help in washing me. Third one is I would like to choose to be buried in the closest graveyard so that these people, they don't really have to carry me in a car. The Sheikh's wish was fulfilled. He was buried only not half a mile away from his house. And he stays here in a very old graveyard so that the graveyard will be staying there. It will not be dug out. So it was actually, that graveyard is not far away from his house, but it had no fence. Okay, and the Sheikh, when he was buried there, straight away there was a fence preventing, sheep and, goats to go in there. So alhamdulillah, was more respected after the Sheikh came in. Some of the brothers who had their parents buried in that small graveyard, which is in the heart of the city, they had dreams and visions in there that they said that our fathers telling them, or mothers, oh, we are happy, we're having the Sheikh coming to us, to live with us in the graveyard. And this came from a number of, we could say, trustworthy students of knowledge, that the tawata'at ru'a kama yuqal, these are the visions where we became like mutawatir. Lots of people, that the people who are inhabitants of the graves are happy with the coming of the Sheikh to them, rahimahullah. And he says that because I don't want lots of people to come, so that would cause a lot of emotions and people are crying and so on and so forth, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me when I meet him. And also I would give all my books, whether the printed ones or the manuscripts or the photocopied, whether it's my writing or the writing of others which are in my house, is to be given to the Jami' al-Islamiyya, and all his books be given to Jami' al-Islamiyya. Because the Jami' al-Islamiyya in Medina, I had good memories there in calling for the sake of the book and the Sunnah upon the Salafi manhaj, and I used to teach there. So all my books are for the students of the Maktaba and the Jami' al-Islamiyya. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit those people from it, and ask the students as well to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the students will benefit from it as well. And I make repentance to Allah. This is 27th of Jumada al-Ula, 1410. That was about 22 years ago that the Sheikh had written this will. As his death, when the Sheikh Al-Albani died, he died on Saturday, and that was on the 22nd of Jumada al-Akhirah of 1420, which is number 5 on the Islamic calendar, and that is the 2nd of October 1999, and he was buried after Isha. As I said, the Sheikh funeral was hastened for 2 reasons. Number 1, because of fulfilling his will, and number 2 as well, that the Sheikh's time, it was hot weather, so they'd like to bury him as soon as possible before any a changing or alteration in the body. And the Sheikh, alhamdulillah, was buried according to the Sunnah, which is the lahd. There's a lahd and there is shaq. Shaq means you open and you put the deceased and you cover it. But the lahd, as in Medina, you dig and then you dig towards the qibla from underneath and you put the deceased underneath so that the ground itself will be sealing, not you putting, it will be sealed like that. And this is called lahd. And the Prophet ﷺ was buried in the lahd way. The Sheikhs, I remember Sheikh Mashur phoning, giving me a call at that night because, as I said, Sheikh didn't want anybody to know. He told me, hurry up, Sheikh had been buried and I was about 25 miles away from the city. I had to tell the brothers who are in my city, hurry up, the Sheikh Al-Albani had been buried. Alhamdulillah, we caught up with the Sheikh before he was laid into his grave. I remember that night very well, even though the Sheikh didn't want anybody to know, and his funeral was so quick. After his death, 2 hours, 3 hours, and he was buried. There's thousands of people. Can imagine that if he was to be delayed, like some of these people being delayed, then they will have lots of, have the airport will be chaos for people coming from all over the countries just to pay the last tribute to the Sheikh, rahimahullah. Okay, inshallah, next week we'll be talking about the book, which is a Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya. Tasfiya Wa Tarbiya is a lecture set by the Sheikh almost 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago. The Sheikh's lecture was delivered and was written, and we'll talk about that inshallah, and we will be concentrating on those points that we need to concentrate upon regarding the manhaj. If you have any questions regarding the Sheikh, rahimahullah, or regarding whatever thing that you need to know about the book, or even anything to do with the religion, we'll answer it, but we're not going to be taking a long time because already, mashallah, we've given more than an hour and a half. Nah, an hour and a half.
Did you ever find those pages?
Was that?
You mentioned the missing pages. Did he ever find them?
No, he did not find them. No. Anybody who have questions regarding the Sheikh? Clear, inshallah. You have any questions? سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.